I, female 34, am a single mom to my amazing son Lucas, male 9, who has spinal muscular atrophy, SMA. For those who don't know, it's a neuromuscular condition that affects his mobility. He uses a wheelchair and needs help with some daily activities, but he's incredibly smart and creative and funny and just, God, he's the best kid ever. So 2 weeks ago, we were at my cousin Bonnie's baby shower, and my Aunt Rhonda, female 62, said something that has me still fuming and honestly losing sleep over. But I need to give some background first, so this all makes sense. Lucas was diagnosed with SMA when he was 14 months old. His dad, Mark, basically checked out emotionally right after the diagnosis and then physically left us about 3 months later. He now lives in another state with his new wife and 2 healthy children, his words, not mine, which makes me want to scream. He sends child support when he remembers, which is like maybe 70% of the time, and he calls Lucas maybe once every few months, if that, whatever. My Aunt Rhonda has always been the type to say whatever pops into her head under the guise of just being honest or telling it like it is. You know the type. She's been making these little concerned comments about Lucas since his diagnosis. She sent me countless articles about experimental treatments that have nothing to do with his specific type of SMA. She once suggested I should consider putting Lucas in a group home when he becomes too much to handle. He was 5 when she said this. She's asked me multiple times if I've given up on dating because most men wouldn't want to take on your situation. Just, ugh. I had to sell my grandmother's jewelry collection to pay for Lucas's first power wheelchair when insurance denied coverage. I don't regret it for a second, though. Seeing his face light up when he could finally move around independently was worth every penny. My mom tries to keep the peace between me and Rhonda, but she basically enables Rhonda's behavior with the whole "that's just how she is" or "she means well" thing. I've tried to explain to my mom how hurtful some of Rhonda's comments are, but she always says I'm being too sensitive or that family is family, whatever that means. So anyway, I was really hesitant about going to Bonnie's baby shower because I knew Rhonda would be there, but Bonnie and I have always been close. She's actually 8 years younger than me, so I used to babysit her lol, and she specifically asked if Lucas could come because she wanted to see him. Lucas was excited to go too, even though he was pretty tired from physical therapy the day before. Everything was fine at first. Lucas was playing games on his tablet while I talked with everyone. Then, during a conversation about motherhood challenges, one of Bonnie's friends asked me how I manage work and Lucas's care. I started explaining his PT schedule and how I've arranged flexible work hours as a special education advocate. I fell into this field after fighting for Lucas's accommodations at his preschool a few years ago. Rhonda interrupted with a comment about my boss understanding my situation in this tone that just, ugh. I ignored it and continued, mentioning that Lucas won his school art contest last month. I'm still so proud of him. Another guest commented that I'm an amazing mother, which was nice, but also kind of annoying because I'm just doing what any parent would do. I don't know. And then Rhonda just said that it is a burden and that Bonnie is lucky she won't have to deal with that since all her tests came back normal. The whole room went completely silent. I looked over and saw Lucas looking up from his tablet. He had clearly heard every word. I could see his eyes filling with tears. Bonnie tried to change the subject by asking who wanted to see the nursery colors. But I could see Lucas was upset, and I just couldn't stay there. I quietly told Bonnie we needed to leave. And Rhonda said I shouldn't be so sensitive because she was just saying what everyone thinks. What everyone thinks. Who thinks that? I wanted to scream at her, but didn't want to ruin Bonnie's shower even more than it had already been ruined. So we just left. The car ride home was, God, I'm tearing up just typing this. Lucas asked me in this small, quiet voice if he was a burden to me. My child had to ask me if he was a burden. I pulled the car over because I couldn't even see through my tears and just held him and told him over and over that he is the absolute best thing that has ever happened to me, that he makes me prouder every single day, that he is not a burden, he is a gift. I've ignored all calls and texts from family for the past 2 weeks. My mom has called like 20 times. Bonnie texted to check if we're okay. Even my brother, who lives out of state, called to see what happened after my mom told him. I've been focused on rebuilding Lucas's confidence. We went to his favorite adaptive playground twice and to the science museum, where this awesome staff member actually remembered him from our previous visits. Lucas was so excited about that. But I've barely slept since it happened. I keep thinking of all the things I should have said to Rhonda. I should have stood up for my son more forcefully. I should have made it clear to everyone in that room that my child is not a burden. I don't know how to move forward with family gatherings. The holidays are only a few months away, and the thought of seeing Rhonda again makes me feel sick. But I also don't want Lucas to miss out on family time with the relatives who do treat him with respect and love. I don't even know what I'm asking here. I guess, am I overreacting? Should I just accept Rhonda's "that's just how I am" excuse? How do I protect my son without completely isolating us from the rest of the family? Edit. Holy crap. I didn't expect this to blow up like this. Thank you all for the supportive comments. To answer some common questions. Edit 2. A lot of you are asking about Lucas's dad. Yes, I've tried to get him more involved, but I can't force someone to be a good parent. He's missed the last 3 scheduled video calls with Lucas. At this point, I think inconsistent contact is almost worse than no contact because Lucas gets his hopes up every time. Edit 3. Several people have asked about my job as a special education advocate. Basically, I help parents navigate the IEP process and fight for appropriate accommodations for their kids. After going through hell trying to get proper support for Lucas at his preschool, the director actually told me they weren't equipped for children like him, which is illegal. I realized how many parents struggle with this and decided to use my experience to help others. Edit 4. To clarify, no, Rhonda has not apologized or even acknowledged that what she said was hurtful. My mom keeps saying I should just let it go because that's just how Rhonda is, but honestly, I'm done accepting that excuse. Edit 5. For those asking about Lucas's condition, SMA affects the motor neurons that control voluntary muscle movement. Lucas can move his arms but has limited strength. He can feed himself most foods but needs help with things like cutting meat or opening containers. He's fully verbal and cognitively typical. Actually above average, he's in the gifted program at school. There are different types of SMA with varying severity. Lucas has type 2. Now for the first update. So a lot has happened since my last post. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who commented. I honestly didn't expect so many people to respond, and the support made me ugly cry for like an hour straight, in a good way. I read every single comment, even though I couldn't respond to them all. It's been about 2 weeks since I posted, and about a month since the baby shower incident. Things have been rough. Lucas has been having nightmares where he keeps saying he's too heavy to carry, and it really upsets me. He's never said anything like this before Rhonda's comments. I've been sleeping in his room some nights because he wakes up so upset. I've basically been avoiding most of my family's calls/texts, except for Bonnie, who's been super understanding about everything, and my younger brother Josh, who lives in Colorado. Josh has always been amazing with Lucas. He actually learned all about adaptive gaming so they could play together online, and he sends Lucas these care packages with science kits and stuff. Like, that's how you be a supportive family member. Work has been complicated too. My boss offered me this promotion that would have meant more money, which we could definitely use, but also more travel. I had to turn it down because Lucas needs stability right now more than ever. My boss was super understanding, but I keep thinking about what Rhonda said. Like, is this what she meant by burden? That I have to consider Lucas in my career decisions, because if so, that's just called being a parent. All parents make sacrifices for their kids. It's not unique to having a disabled child. Anyway, something big happened this past Saturday. Lucas was at adaptive swimming with his best friend's family. They've been so great about including him in weekend activities, and I was actually enjoying having the house to myself for once. I was drinking coffee and looking at accessible vacation options for spring break when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Rhonda standing there with homemade chocolate chip cookies for Lucas. She basically invited herself in, even though I was too shocked to speak. She came into my house, put the cookies on the counter, and made herself at home. She even criticized my ramp outside, saying it looked worn. It's fine, I had it checked last month. She sat down uninvited at my kitchen table and told me I was being too sensitive about what she said at the baby shower. She basically said that everyone knows raising a disabled child is harder, and she was just saying what everyone thinks. I decided this was the right time to have the conversation we've needed to have for years. I've always avoided confrontation with Rhonda because my mom is constantly begging me to keep the peace. But I'm just done. I'm done letting her comments slide. I told her how Lucas asked if he was a burden on the drive home from the shower and that he heard everything she said. Her response was that he's old enough to know his condition makes things difficult for me, and she was just being honest about what everyone thinks. That was my breaking point after years of her concerned comments and backhanded support. I managed to stay calm, outside at least. Inside I was screaming, and told her that Lucas is not a burden. He's the greatest joy of my life. I said the real problem is having family members who only see his disability and not his personality or achievements. I asked how she would feel if someone called Bonnie's baby a burden, simply because all children require care and sacrifice. Babies need diaper changes and midnight feedings and constant attention. Does that make them burdens? She got defensive, and I finally told her she needed to leave. I said she wasn't welcome back unless she educated herself about disability, apologized to Lucas directly, and changed her behavior permanently. She started crying and saying I was being cruel to her and that she was just trying to help. For once, I didn't back down when a family member got upset. I told her when she's ready to respect my son as a full human being, we can talk, but until then, we need space from her. The aftermath has been, ugh! My mom, Angie, has called me like 50 times. Half the calls are demanding I apologize to Rhonda for disrespecting an elder. Are you kidding me? And the other half are her trying to understand my perspective, but still ultimately saying things like, but she's your aunt, and family is family. Like that excuses anything. Several of my extended family members have apparently taken Rhonda's side. My cousin Tyler texted me saying, I'm tearing the family apart over words, and that I've always been too sensitive. I just blocked him. I don't have the emotional energy for this right now. Bonnie came by a few days after the shower, before the Rhonda confrontation, to apologize for not speaking up during the initial incident. She was crying and said she was so shocked she didn't know what to say, but that she should have defended Lucas. I told her it wasn't her job to manage her mom's behavior, especially at her own baby shower. We're good. One positive thing that's come out of all this, I started a blog about parenting children with disabilities. It's actually getting some traction. I wrote about the burden narrative and how harmful it is, and it got shared in some disability advocacy groups. Writing about it has helped me process everything and feel more confident in my decision to establish boundaries with Rhonda. But now I'm worried about what this means for family gatherings going forward. The holidays are coming up in a few months, and I'm dreading it. I don't want Lucas to be isolated from the family members who do treat him with respect and love, but I also can't subject him to Rhonda's comments anymore. Am I wrong for standing my ground? I feel justified but also guilty somehow. Like, am I being stubborn and making this harder for everyone, including Lucas? My therapist says I'm doing the right thing, but family stuff is so complicated. Edit. To answer some common questions. Yes, Bonnie is still talking to her mom. She told me she had a serious conversation with her about the incident, but I don't know the details. And no, Rhonda has not apologized to Lucas directly. The cookies were obviously her version of an apology, but there were no actual words of remorse. Edit 2. Someone asked about Mark, Lucas's dad. No, he doesn't know about any of this because he hasn't called Lucas in over 2 months. He was supposed to have Lucas for a week this summer, but canceled at the last minute because his wife was stressed about having Lucas in their house. Lucas was devastated. I'm honestly glad Mark wasn't involved in this situation because he would have probably said something like, well, he is a lot of work because he's the worst. Edit 3. For those asking what my brother Josh said about all this, he offered to fly out and accidentally spill wine on Rhonda at the next family gathering, lol. But seriously, he just listened and validated my feelings without trying to fix anything or push me to forgive Rhonda for the sake of the family. That's what support looks like. Now for the second update. Hey everyone. It's been a while since my last update, and so much has happened that I don't even know where to start. It's been about 2 months since the confrontation with Rhonda at my house, and honestly, these have been some of the most emotionally draining, but also weirdly empowering months of my life. Like I'm exhausted, but also feel stronger, if that makes any sense. So I decided to skip the big family 4th of July picnic this year. My mom, Angie, was furious about it and kept saying I was punishing everyone for Rhonda's mistake. A mistake is forgetting to bring the potato salad to a picnic, not calling your great-nephew a burden to his face, but whatever. Instead, I took Lucas to this accessible beach day organized by a local disability support group, and it was honestly the best decision ever. Lucas made 2 new friends there, this awesome girl who also has SMA, and this boy with CP, who's into the same video games as him. They've been video chatting almost every day since, and it's been so great to see him connecting with kids who just get it, you know. My blog about parenting disabled children has actually taken off way more than I expected. That post I mentioned last time about the burden narrative ended up getting really popular in disability advocacy circles. Some larger disability rights organizations shared it, and I even got interviewed for this podcast about parenting. I'm still in shock about it, honestly. The comments from other parents saying they've experienced similar things with family members made me feel less alone, though also sad that this is so common. The family situation has been complicated. My mom finally stopped trying to get me to reconcile with Rhonda after I showed her videos of Lucas's therapy sessions where he was working through feeling like a burden. She actually cried when his therapist asked him to draw what the word burden felt like, and he drew himself as a heavy backpack. I still get choked up thinking about it. That finally seemed to get through to her, that this wasn't just me being too sensitive. God, I hate that phrase so much. Bonnie had her baby, a healthy little girl named Tracy, born 3 weeks ago. I sent a really cute outfit and one of those baby activity gyms, but I declined to go to the hospital when everyone else was visiting because I knew Rhonda would be there. Bonnie totally understood. She's been sending me tons of baby pictures though, and the baby is absolutely adorable. Lucas is super excited to be a cousin once removed. He looked up the exact family relationship term, lol. But the biggest update is what happened last week. I was helping Lucas with his adaptive bike in the driveway when Rhonda's car pulled up. I immediately tensed up and was about to tell her to leave. But before I could say anything, I realized she was already crying in her car. Like, she hadn't even gotten out yet and was just sitting there crying. When she finally got out, she was carrying these books about disability rights and ableism. She looked different somehow, less put together than usual. She told me she was wrong about everything. I just stood there, completely frozen. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face after everything she's put Lucas through. But another part was just shocked to see her like this. She told me she'd been reading these books and didn't know or understand before. Her hands were shaking as she held them up. I finally asked Lucas to go inside and finish his homework while I talked to Rhonda. He looked nervous, but went in. I hesitantly invited her in, but made it very clear that Lucas was busy, and I wasn't promising anything. She sat on the couch, literally trembling, and told me she needed to apologize to Lucas too, but wanted to talk to me first. She explained that she joined an online support group for families of disabled children. I immediately asked why the sudden change because this seemed so out of character for her. She admitted that Bonnie had basically threatened to limit her access to baby Tracy if she didn't educate herself about disability. But then she said that once she actually started learning, she realized how horrible she'd been. The whole time she was talking, I just sat there with my arms crossed. I was not about to make this easy for her after what she put Lucas through. Then she told me something I never knew. Apparently her childhood friend had a disability and was institutionalized back in the 60s, and the parents never talked about the child again. She said that created this deep fear in her about disability, which explains some things but doesn't excuse anything she said. I mostly just listened, not offering any forgiveness. She started crying hard at one point, saying she understood if I never forgave her but wanted to apologize to Lucas. I told her that wasn't my decision to make. It was his. She looked surprised by that, which honestly just shows how little she understood about respecting disabled people as full human beings with their own agency. I went to Lucas's room and explained that Rhonda wanted to apologize. I made it super clear that he could absolutely say no, and that I would support whatever he wanted. He thought about it for a minute and said he would talk to her, but only if I stayed in the room. God, he's so brave. Braver than I would have been at his age. When we came back to the living room, Rhonda looked nervous, which was a first. Usually she's so confident in her telling it like it is, beast. She apologized for what she said at the baby shower, and then actually asked Lucas about his interests and what he'd been doing at school lately, like she was trying to see him for the first time instead of just his disability. After Lucas went back to his room, he was polite, but obviously still uncomfortable around her. I told her what I'd been holding back for years. I told her that her words weren't just hurtful, but actually dangerous, that disabled children who feel like a burden have higher rates of depression. I've read the research for my blog, that Lucas had nightmares for weeks after her comment. that I have to fight every single day against a world that already devalues my son without family doing the same. I told her that while her apology was a start, trust would have to be rebuilt through consistent actions over time. That I wasn't just going to pretend everything was fine because she read a few books. She completely broke down at that point, crying hard, mascara everywhere, begging for forgiveness, and saying she doesn't deserve my grace, but is grateful for the chance to try to be better. We're in this weird place now where we're slowly rebuilding some kind of relationship. She's still attending that support group for families of disabled children and seems to be making genuine efforts to connect with Lucas. She sent him this adaptive art kit that was actually really thoughtful and showed she'd done some research. Last week, we all went to Bonnie's house to meet baby Tracy. We went at a different time than most of the extended family. And Rhonda surprised everyone by standing up to my Uncle Bob, who made some stupid comment about Lucas's adaptive utensils. She actually said those utensils help Lucas eat independently and asked Bob what his excuse was for being rude. I was so surprised. I'm still feeling pretty guarded around her. Like, this change seems real, but also I'm not fully trusting it yet. Trust takes time to rebuild and all that. The whole experience has definitely changed my advocacy work, though. I'm way more vocal about ableism in our community now. I've even started consulting with some local businesses about accessibility issues. One restaurant owner actually hired me to review their space and make recommendations, which was cool. Lucas has been so resilient through all of this, though he still occasionally asks questions that show he's insecure about his place in the family. The other day he asked if Bonnie's baby would still want to play with him when she gets older, which made me sad. I guess what I've learned from all this is that family relationships are really complicated. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or pretending everything is fine. People can grow when confronted with their prejudices, but that growth has to be consistent over time. And maintaining boundaries, even when it's hard and people call you difficult, can actually lead to healthier connections in the long run. This journey is definitely still ongoing and sometimes painful, but I'm proud of standing up for Lucas and showing him that he deserves respect and dignity, no matter what. And I'm cautiously hopeful that Rhonda's change is genuine and permanent. Edit. So many people are asking if I think Rhonda's change is real. Honestly, I don't know. I think the fact that she's still going to the support group after a month is a good sign. And she sent Lucas 3 adaptive-friendly gifts that show she's actually paying attention to his specific needs, not just his disability in general. But yeah, I'm definitely still watching carefully. To the person who asked what Lucas thinks of all this, he's still pretty reserved around Rhonda. He's polite, but doesn't share much with her. When I asked if he forgives her, he said, "I guess so," but didn't want to talk more about it. I'm not pushing him either way. Thanks for all the congrats about the blog. For those asking, no, I'm not monetizing it yet, though some people have suggested I should. Right now, it just feels good to connect with other parents who get it. Several people have asked about Mark, Lucas's dad, again. Still pretty much absent. He did call on Lucas's half birthday, something I always celebrate with a half cake because why not have more cake in life? Which shocked me. The call lasted about 10 minutes. Lucas was excited at first, but then kind of quiet afterward. Mark has this way of asking about all the medical therapy stuff without ever asking about, Lucas's actual interests or feelings. It's frustrating. To answer the many people asking if I'm dating, lol. Between work, Lucas's care, and now this blog, I barely have time to shower regularly, let alone date. And honestly, after what happened with Mark, I'm pretty gun-shy about introducing anyone new into our lives. Lucas needs stability, not some random guy who might bail when things get tough.